Welcome back, everyone. We're back onto the learning curve. Now we're on to quadrant two. Last week we did quadrant one, the enthusiastic beginner, happy-go-lucky, super confident, but now we're in the danger zone. So the disillusioned learner. Lisa, can you tell us about this disillusioned learner and why it's a hazard?
So the disillusioned learner is the person who comes in as an enthusiastic beginner. They think they're going to rock the job, even if there are a few things they don't know. They're ready to come in, rock the job, do better than the person who was there before, and maybe upgrade the position. As they get in the job, they realize they don't know things, and there's a lot they don't know, and there's a lot they need to learn. And as they start to realize that, they become more and more disillusioned because their confidence is dropping. But
Hmm.
actually, their competence is increasing because they're actually learning.
Right, right. Yeah, that's the irony here, right? Because when you look at this graph, the horizontal line is the level of competence, and that's always going up.
Right.
There's never a dip in that. It's just their perception
Yep.
changes.
Yeah, exactly. And as they're going through that, the important thing is how you manage them through that process. So as their manager, you want to make sure that you're keeping their confidence up.
Mm,
And you want to make sure that you're correcting them appropriately, but you also want to make sure that you're keeping their confidence up and making sure that they know it's okay to make mistakes. Anytime somebody comes into a job, they're going to make mistakes, and
hmm.
it has to be okay.
Right, right.
One of the worst things you can do is create a culture where it's not okay to make mistakes, because then you won't find out about the mistakes until you're way
It's
down the
too
line.
late. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Okay. What are some ways to, you said you got to build up their confidence. What are ways to give the feedback in a way that doesn't turn them off?
yeah, so giving them feedback, you want to give, you've heard the sandwich approach where
Right.
you say
Yeah.
one thing positive, then you give the feedback, then you say something positive at the end. That's always a good way. One of the things I used to teach a course that was from Zinger Miller, and they talked about the basic principles of giving feedback. And one of the
Hmm.
basic principles is that you focus on the situation, the issue, the behavior, not on the person. And so
Hmm.
always talking, instead of saying, you know, um, you're not very good at this, because that
Right,
can come out. It's, you're not very good
right.
at this. And you're in your mind, you're thinking the one thing and the person's thinking
Hmm.
the job. But if you don't
Hmm.
focus on what they are, whether they're good or not, you focus on the job itself and what they did, then
Hmm.
yeah, that's a much better way. And always give, and make sure you're giving specific feedback, especially positive feedback. Negative feedback, we tend to usually give, pretty specific negative feedback of you did this specific thing wrong. But
Hmm.
when you're giving positive feedback, make sure you give very clear positive feedback, like, wow, you really did a great job at.
On X, Y, Z. Right. Hmm. That's really great advice. Okay, great. And so part of doing a good job as a manager for someone in phase two is sort of shepherding them into phase three, right? Something that might be a little bit of a better place. So what are the actions you're taking to just change the dynamic there?
Yeah, so just let me step back 1 second and say, if this isn't done well, you're at a very high risk of losing that person.
Right, you don't even get to quadrant three.
Exactly. So,
Got it.
one thing that might happen is they may leave. The other thing that happens is they mentally check out. So they end up, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of, I'm not very good at this, and then they become not very good at it. And then you end up
Right.
having to help them leave. But to shepherd them into quadrant three is really about you coaching them, you know
Hmm.
and the thing about making sure that they know it's okay that they've made mistakes and they're making mistakes, because if they know that, and if they know they can come to you, then they're
Hmm.
going to feel a lot better about what they're doing.
Right. So it seems like a core principle here is around trust.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And I have another question here, a little bit unrelated, but I'm betting I'm not the only person wondering about this. But typically, how long are these phases? Because I'm just thinking, all right, like if this were like a doctor in a hospital, then that phase might be pretty long.
Correct.
right? And other jobs that might be relatively short. Is it just variable based on how much there is to learn?
Yeah, it really is variable, but moving from one to two generally happens within the first 3 months or so.
Uh-huh. Right.
So you could, going from two to three is much more variable, but moving from one
Gotcha.
to two is usually within about the first 3 months.
Right, that honeymoon phase,
Yeah,
that's a universal phenomenon for people, right?
that's true. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think this has been really useful for me, and I hope others get some insight from this as well. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Doc.